Hello, I'm about to embark on a couple of very interesting boat trips that will end up on my Cruising the Cut channel. The first of those is on the other side of the country, so I'm going in the campervan, going to spend a couple of nights in the van and also meet up with some familiar faces, so I thought I'd bring you along. And although that first trip actually departs from Lincolnshire, the first order of business is to pick up another passenger from Norfolk, so that's where I'm heading first.
After an initial run along some motorways, I was soon on A roads heading east. Halfway along I stopped briefly to get some diesel, a sandwich and a drink. Then it was on into Norfolk, where the sun had vanished, the landscape was flat and the roads were smooth but undulating, with precarious ditches on either side.
I've never known roads as bumpy as these. They are quite something.
Finally I arrived in Denver, where I'd arranged to pick up a fellow boater next to a lock and sluice. Another hour later they were dropped off in Boston and I got to my campsite for the next 2 nights. And a familiar figure was apparently already here too.
And oh my goodness, I recognise this van. Who does this belong to? Who's that skulking around in the bushes? It's only Lorna!
We parked our vans alongside each other at this rather nice campsite and went for a look around. There's the facilities block, and we went in search of the fishing lake. Just the roar of a distant road interrupted the birdsong. Lorna has filmed her own vlog. I've left a link to it in the video description. We found the fishing lake and one happy fisherman who'd caught a monster. Plenty of other wildlife here too, including newborns. And a more unusual sight outside one of the static cabins on the lakeshore. Back in the van, a cup of tea was required. Accompanied by jammy goodness, which Lorna made a mess with.
I've squirted all down my chin.
Really?
Then we popped to a shop for provisions. I was just too darn lazy to drive, and Lorna kindly stepped up. Despite that shopping, Lorna had one of the pies I already had with me, which I tried heating in the Ridge Monkey even though it was too big. I just squashed it in. I didn't have much to go with it either, so just boiled up some potatoes. See, if you press the lid down hard, it will fit a pie. Meanwhile, Lorna had changed into her evening dinner dress. I had burnt corn escalopes and Lorna had burnt pie, but had it warmed sufficiently?
Oh! Oh! I was like Mount Etna in there. Oh! It's definitely cooked.
And with that, she returned to her own van for the night.
Good night, Lorna.
Good night, David.
See you in the morning.
Night-night.
My van has become infinitely more comfy for sleep since I swapped a sleeping bag for duvets. The next morning began mildly damp and overcast. It was an early start.
Good morning. It is 6:30. A long day of boating ahead. Time to run to the shower block and hope there's nobody else using the showers at this ungodly hour.
a minor hiccup to start the day as I discovered I'd lost the key card to get into the shower block, but it had just fallen out of my trousers when I took them off last night, so that's all right. I am washed, you'll be reassured to know.
I fortified myself further with a cup of tea and brushed my teeth. Then Lorna and I left the campsite in the van, the first challenge being to manoeuvre close enough to the gate key reader to be able to raise the barrier. Ah, just made it. It was a short trip into Boston by the river where the boats we were joining were moored. Highlights of that day's boat trip were well, Lorna and I have just got back after a very, very long but very exciting and interesting day's boating. One more night at this campsite, so time for a spot of breakfast tomorrow morning, and then I will be heading off elsewhere. I will bid you good night.
Good morning. Well, a slightly damp start to the day, not in weather terms, but because I went to refill the water container, and either I was spilling it as I was refilling it, or it's leaking, but there was a pool of water on the bottom of the van, so I've had to do a frantic mopping session. However, all now seems to be okay, and I am showered and dressed and ready to go at whatever the world has to offer me. Look what the world has to offer me. There's nothing finer than a morning visit from Lorna in a onesie. Step back, let us admire the magnificence.
I'm a reindeer.
Of course you are. Yes. Silly of me. You are indeed a reindeer. Well, come in, dear.
What noise do reindeers make? That'd be more like a...
I was going to have a go at these American mixed pancake stuff for breakfast, but having had a very late night cheese sandwich before I went to bed, I am now, even this long in the morning, not hungry. I'm going to have a banana and a cup of tea instead. Lorna, what are you going to have to eat for breakfast?
I'm not going to have a banana and a cup of tea. I'm going to have some donuts.
Yay for the donuts. Breakfast of champions.
Indeed.
Banana consumed and much chat had with Lorna, and so now, after 2 nights of campervanning and 1 very intense day of boating, it is time to head off. So I'll just go and clean my teeth at the shower block, and then that's it. Pack up and go. It's a few days later, and I have another trip to go on for another day of filming. I'm heading down to Hertfordshire to do a video about water management. It is absolutely stunning. In fact, it's boiling hot. I think today it's supposed to be about 27 Celsius, and the aircon in the van seems to have packed up, so it's going to be windows down the whole way.
A large part of this drive was tedious motorway, but an upcoming hour's delay due to a crash prompted me to divert along more rural roads, and in the sunshine I was so glad I did, as it was a splendid journey. I swear I'm going slower round this corner than the footage makes it look. This was a bit tight. Finally, I found my destination, a tiny campsite in the Hertfordshire countryside. This really was very pleasant.
Ah, this is very civilised indeed. There's a nice cool breeze just blowing through the hatch in the roof. I can hear lambs bleating, birds tweeting, and the gentle hum of the fridge keeping everything nice and cold. In a previous video I mentioned I was having trouble with the pipe work to the sink because it kept getting kinked, and I fiddled about with it and it wasn't really satisfactory. And the other problem, which I don't think I mentioned at the time, is that the pipe that went down into the canister of water was very flexible and it would curl around as you pushed it into the tank, so the little submersible pump would sometimes end up curling around and pointing upwards, so that when the water had gone down by about half a tank, the pump was out of the water, and I needed a proper way to ensure the pump was always at the bottom. Well, I have implemented a system. There's the water tank, freshly filled and all much as before with the submersible pump in it. But two things have happened here. Firstly, you can see I've added an elbow joint to the top where it comes out, which is going to put much less strain on the pipe that then goes round to the bottom of the sink. So it should just come straight out of there and round without that pipe needing to kink. But the other thing I've done, which I can't really show you actually, is, well, not without taking it all apart, which I'm not going to, but on the bottom of this is a piece of straight pipe, fixed straight pipe with the water pump at the bottom. So when you put it in there, the water pump is bound to end up at the bottom. Now I will dismantle it. I'd be a poor vlogger if I did not. It's just some spare pipe that I had lying around from the boat, and because it is straight, and by pure luck it pushes straight onto the water pump connection, I didn't have to fiddle with that at all. So it goes straight down and will therefore be definitely on the bottom of the water thing. Anyway, that's a much better solution all round, so I'm quite happy about that. It's 4 o'clock and I haven't had any lunch yet, so I'm going to have a snack of this drink that's been in the fridge, nice and cool, and this fake sausage roll that's actually quite nice.
A quick check of the site facilities, 3 toilet and shower blocks, all as clean and tidy as you'd hope. Plus sewage disposal and fresh water. At that point the sun vanished, so I retreated to the van to read a book.
Well, so much for reading a book. I fell absolutely sound asleep for about 2 solid hours. I don't know what came over me. I was absolutely shattered. Anyway, it's now 7 o'clock in the evening, time for a spot of supper. And tonight's culinary masterpiece is rice with chicken in a white sauce. Admittedly, the chicken in a white sauce comes out of a tin, but hey, it's a meal. Fit for a king, albeit perhaps a king whose royal chef had gone on holiday, leaving the king to fend for himself for a bit. But it's warm and it's edible. That's what counts.
I was up with the lark again next morning, ready for filming, and it was a stunning morning.
This morning's breakfast is a banana and a cup of tea.
After that, off I went for yet more filming. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.